Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode number 24 of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential, and together we can change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Toni Purvis. Toni began her career on Wall Street at Goldman Sachs, after which she began her own professional development and leadership consulting company. Toni managed multiple career development programs for management leadership for tomorrow. There she implemented and executed programming for major companies like Google, JP Morgan Chase, American Express, LinkedIn, Twitter, Clorox, Target, and many others. On today's podcast, Toni discussed how she transitioned from Wall Street to owning her own career consulting company called Paradigm One. Come on, please help me welcome Toni Purvis.
This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
Lead to Greatness community. Hello, my name is Toni again. I am originally from Houston, Texas, but I currently reside in Washington, D.C. I grew up, born and raised in Houston, Texas, and then left the state to go to school. I went to school in Atlanta, went to Spelman College, which I love the experience there. But I went there to study people because I love psychology and sociology, which has been one of the main themes throughout my entire career and one of the propellers for me starting my business. But I've lived in New York, I've lived in Nashville, I have, again, landed here in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And so that's ultimately like where I have lived. And in terms of my career and background, I'm a career coach, and I own Paradigm One, which is a career consulting and career development business for young professionals.
Awesome.
And we do a bit of leadership training, etiquette consulting, soft skills training, all of that to help equip young professionals as they begin and foster their careers.
Wow, awesome. Paradigm One. Wow, that's an awesome name. How did you come up with that name?
So I did a lot of market research, and I was thinking I need something that shows the journey of transformation when you actually embrace yourself and the journey of coming to and self-actualization. And so I was thinking it's like a paradigm shift.
Wow.
That's the way that I looked at it, and I said, okay, I like paradigm. And then I liked one because I think that it truly is about shifting your paradigm to make sure you know you are the one for that opportunity. And once you buy into that and you really understand that you are the one, I think you're invincible at that point, because oftentimes if we don't have confidence in ourselves, we can't expect other people to believe in us or trust us as well. So I think, it's about that paradigm shift of believing, knowing wholeheartedly that you are the one, whatever the opportunity might be. It could be a job, it could be an interview, it could be a speaking opportunity, it could be a promotion, it could be anything. But if you believe you're the one, I think there's a magic that comes with that as well.
Wow, that is awesome. I was looking at the website, and the website, by the way, looks awesome. I mean, you have an awesome website, but there's something in the website that really caught my attention, and it said, be relevant, be radical, be you. Explain that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So that is one of my standing mottos, because I think if you can balance all of those three things, you are destined for success. So be radical. You have to think outside the box. You've got to color outside the lines sometimes, especially if you want to lead to greatness. If you want, I've never met a leader who wasn't a little crazy, right? I've never met a leader who didn't think differently. Everyone that I can think of, you had a different approach, or you stood out, you were distinguished for some reason.
Right.
And it's because of radical thinking, or thinking differently than the current, or conforming with the flow. And so that's the radical behind it. Be relevant is always striving to keep up with the times, either as a professional or a leader or an entrepreneur or whatever it may be. You got to stay current. And we've seen that with large tech giants. We've seen it with great mom and pop stores, but if they didn't stay relevant, let's take Kodak, or let's take insert Polaroid, or whoever, they're or even your favorite musical artist, they stay relevant with how music is changing or how the industry is changing. So as much as you want to stand out and be radical, you have to be relevant as well and keep up with what's going on around you.
Love
And
it.
then beyond that, of all of that shifting and moving and transitioning and being radical and relevant, you have to be authentic to yourself along the
Mm.
way. And you have to be real to who you are, because it's unsustainable if you can't. So it's too hard to be somebody else. And we weren't created to be someone else. We were created specifically with the blueprint to be who we are. And we
Right.
waste a lot of energy not staying in our own lane and looking at other people. So at the end of it all, the most comfortable place is to be real and authentic to who you are.
I love it. You mentioned crazy leaders. So you know what? Now I don't feel too bad about being thinking I'm crazy sometimes, because I think of some crazy things. So now I don't feel so bad. Now I realize I'm amongst a company of great people. So
Great, crazy people. Yes.
right. That's great. Us crazy people need to stick together, you know.
Absolutely. Strength in numbers.
Right. I was checking out your resume. It was pretty awesome. You worked on Wall Street. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So when I was in school, I had the blessing of getting an internship my sophomore summer to go work at Goldman Sachs in New
Wow.
York. And that's exactly how I thought. I was like, the big city, the big apple, this is a career opportunity of a lifetime. A girl from small town, Humble, Texas, I get to go work in New York and, start my career. And I'm not even going to reference Mary Tyler Moore, because I don't even know if people really remember that show. But it's like, okay, well, this is awesome. And I got the chance to go work on Wall Street and get exposed to a completely different career. Because mind you, I said I went to school to study psychology and sociology and people. So I found myself with this newfound opportunity, and it led to another internship and then accepting an offer to go work full time for the bank. And this was before everything hit in 2008 and the recession and the collapse of bulge bracket banks, et cetera. Wow. And so, or the bailouts, I'll say. Wow. And so I was able to go and really take advantage of just that new opportunity, a new place to live, a new lifestyle, a new career, and start that chapter there. And so, yeah, that's the background around going to work in Wall Street. But I will say, it wasn't a good fit for me in the end. And so that was my first bout with leadership, was because I had to make a decision of, is this where I want my career to go, or do I want it to change? And I made the very tough decision there that I would lead and say, no, this isn't for me. I'm going in another direction, and I'm going to follow my purpose. I'm going to follow my calling. And although I'm leaving behind what feels like a great opportunity of what everyone else is telling me I should do, because everybody else, Cedric, said I was crazy. You're leaving one of the best banks and this salary and this and that. Are you out of your mind? But I said, no, I have to be real. I have to be authentic. And this is not where I'm supposed to be. So I have to go.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. Let me ask you this question. So, because when I hear Wall Street, I watch TV. I've watched, the movie Pursuit of Happiness, and you watch all these great movies about, So, is it what the TV shows it to be? What is it? What is it really like?
I do watch those movies and I chuckle. I will say the competitiveness and the intensity is definitely there. But if we're talking like Pursuit of Happiness and Wolf of Wall Street, I wasn't on that side of the bank. Let's say that. But it is a very just super intense and high traffic, high fast pace. You have to keep up and you have to be ready to play, because clients aren't going to wait on you, and neither is your managing director, and the stock markets don't wait on you as well. And so you have to be in a position to think quickly and on your feet, and high risk decisions at that. And so your tolerance level grows, and just living in New York on top of that was eye-opening. Again, coming from Texas, where everyone's laid back and everyone's friendly and everyone, it was completely different in New York as well. So the culture was different across the board.
Wow, I bet culture shock. Yeah.
But
So
I do think those stories were exaggerated just a
right.
little bit, although some parts were like that, not where I was at.
Well, appreciate that. Appreciate that. That helps myself and also the Lead to Greatness Nation to know, we're not really missing anything. So, sometimes feel like we're kind of missing out, if we don't get in on those opportunities. So I really appreciate you clearing that up for us. Thank you. You working for Goldman Sachs and you decide to step away, and people also verbally said you were crazy.
Mhm.
They said you was crazy. I mean, what? How? What was you thinking?
That's what they were asking too. They hit me with the statistic. They said, do you know it's harder to get in an Ivy League school? Excuse me, it's harder to get into Goldman Sachs than an Ivy League school. So you're going to, and literally, like, even if you saw a visual, it was me. Like, everyone's breaking down the door and selling their soul, honestly, to
Wow.
get into this place. And I'm like, meh, never mind.
Right,
And that's me trivializing it for the sake
right,
of
right.
humor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it and that I had to be sure-footed in my decision to be able to justify and substantiate a decision of that magnitude. And so that's the same I'd say to any other leader as well. Like, once you're convicted of where you're trying to, and I mean, we can, I'm thinking again of different examples of different leaders who were probably like on their way to being admitted to an asylum because their idea may have been crazy, but in the end it worked out and everyone's like, oh, we get it.
Yeah.
I knew at that point it was the long game. I knew it was, again, me being authentic and true to me, and that helped me stand against the criticism,
Yeah.
and sometimes even the negative or lack of support, because there's going to be the lack of support of people not seeing your vision or not seeing what you're trying to do.
Mm.
But do you have that why? Do you have that purpose, or that anchor or buoyancy you can claim and cling to when the waves around you are tossing?
Yeah.
And so for anyone out there, all the leaders out there, I definitely say, make sure you are strong in your why, because that's what's going to help you withstand the test of time and the test of criticism and the test of failure and the tests of lessons and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think most people get it wrong because a lot of times we think about this whole, I think the worst information we got about business is the overnight success. A lot of people think it's like overnight. And I remember even with starting to Lead to Greatness LLC back in February, the whole thing, it was like, I'm looking at it. First of all, you just said something that I think is really key, is about your why. And, understanding my why, because I have to be honest, even now, because it don't always take off like you wish you would take off, so that why is what keeps me going. And I can just imagine starting, a company, career coaching. I mean, let's kind of talk a little bit about that. How did ups and downs, was it an overnight success? I mean, after a month, it just hit it off and you just took off? Or let's talk about it a little bit. How did that go for you?
I wish that
What did
was
it
the
look like?
story I could tell. I would say I've been in business for over 10 years now. My business has shifted shapes, I'd say,
Wow.
as I've grown and adjusted my products and services, which is a part of the evolution of entrepreneurship as well. But I would say I was far from an overnight success,
Mm.
because I'm still in motion for building and scaling my business. It's kind of the journey that doesn't end is one. It's a path
Absolutely.
of no end and no return at the same time. And so, but I was very inspired to start this business because when I left Wall Street and made the decision to walk away from Wall Street, first of all, it took a lot of time to realize that, because you do go through like beating up yourself, like, should I have done that? Should I not have done that? Is this a decision I would regret?
Yeah.
But I knew I'd regret staying more than I would leaving. And I knew I'd regret not starting the business more than I would starting it and just beginning the entire process of building something. So when I left there, I went back home to Houston, and I was able, thank God, to stay with my parents and get back on my feet. But I was picking up jobs along the way, and I started working at an inner city middle school in Houston, Texas, and it was night and day. To go from Wall Street to an inner city middle school, I was just so blown away and astounded, honestly. And I was just like, these children at this school are struggling for textbooks. We're trying to make sure there's toilet paper in the bathroom, like, and soap. And so how do I go from the land of milk and honey where $20,000 is a rounding error to the fact that some of these students will probably never leave Houston or ever travel outside of the radius of Houston, but they're so talented and they're so bright and would kill a career in Wall Street, but may never get the opportunity. There's a gap there.
Wow.
So what can I do about decreasing that gap? What can I do to close that gap and help give them the exposure or the access or the tools or the resources they need to help position themselves for the careers that they want, or for the travel, or for a future of one they can control versus one that's been given to them or forced upon them at that.
Wow.
So all that being said, I started staying after school with some students. I said, we're going to talk about what it means to be a respectable young lady. We're going to talk about what it means to how to groom yourself. We're going to talk about what it means for you to interview, or whatever the skill was at that time. And I said, you know what? I think I want to turn this into a business model so that I can help level the playing field for young professionals of color, or young lady professionals, whatever the disparity may be. I'd like to again close that gap. And so then was born the etiquette consulting and career development company, Paradigm One.
Wow. And I'm listening, from the whole interview, I keep hearing this come out. You haven't said it yet, but it's in everything you're saying. It's helping others, helping others, helping others, helping others. It's like, your whole thought and, just the purpose of helping others. So what would you say is the most exciting part about what you do to help others?
You have a gift. You are, wow, anointed, because that literally is what I feel my purpose is to help and to give. It is at the core of me. There's nothing that makes me more happy and more excited to give. And so to answer your question, the main takeaways and the rewarding moments that I have with the clients that I work with is when you see that light bulb moment, and it goes off, and you see the paradigm shift. You see it happen, and they say, Toni, it wasn't until I actually either was coaching with you, or I went through your workshop, or I went through your class, it gave me the awareness of what I may have been doing incorrectly, or it gave me the awareness of what I could do better. And it started me on this path of introspection so that I can then be a more confident so-and-so, or I can be more intentional about the steps I'm taking to carry me in the direction, give me the momentum that I need for what I'm trying to do. So it's that intangible deposit that I'm able to experience as a coach, where you see it in their eyes, and you know that you just changed a life, honestly, because hopefully that's something they'll impart into the next generation, which the generation before me, my grandparents and my parents, imparted in me. And so if we are talking about giving, I want to give back in that way. And what seeds can I plant in the next generation to make sure they don't forget the good old down home core values and principles, but then that they also are positioning themselves for success to continue generation over generation as well.
Wow, that's awesome. Where do you think they come from, the helping others, that passion? Where do you think they come from?
It's family. It's definitely family. I'd say I love my grandparents. May they rest in peace. But between my grandparents and my parents and just family members in general, we didn't really grow up with much, but we were taught that what you have, you respect. What you have, you don't waste. What you have, you still give, because the collective effort will always outweigh the individual effort. So I remember my grandmother, oh gosh, she would give whatever she had at our, how grandmamas do. Here, baby, here go 57 cents, go buy you a Coke. That was my grandmother all day. She might have only had 58 cents, but she gave me 57 of them, right? So to me, it was just before I even came out the womb, giving, between the Black community, or giving between the Houston down Southern, hospitality. It was just always around me to give. And it was one thing that really brought me genuine joy.
Wow. So here it is. I know you love helping others. It's a part of your family culture. You got it from your grandmother. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA to help others. But here's the thing. Even with helping others, sometimes you're trying to help someone, but they're just not, it's not clicking. They're not getting it. You try, and sometimes, especially when you have that spirit to help someone, I mean, it can be draining when you're trying to pour into someone and they're not receiving it. So what from the experience you had as far as helping others, what is one of the behaviors, traits, or habits that you have seen often hinders development?
hmm I'd say one of the main things is being resistant to change. That's one of the major culprits, I'd say. So sometimes it can show up as just being ignorant. Like, you can't fault somebody for not knowing something, because after all, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so sometimes it takes the epiphany of someone introducing something to you where you say, oh, I didn't realize that was an option, or that was something I can do. But then there are some people who who prefer to stay in a place of ignorance, or even arrogance at
Yeah,
that, because I think arrogance is a huge blocker of success or self-improvement or
absolutely.
development as well. So then within that also lives a resistance to change. Change is uncomfortable, and so is transition.
Yeah.
Actually, I've heard it put that change isn't honestly that bad. It's the transition. That's the hard part. It's about getting used to what's new, or not knowing what's on the other side of change.
Yeah.
So, with all of that being said, the personality or the habits or the traits that I see of those who may not go as far, or who are resistant to the development, are those who are resistant to that change and not willing to embrace change for what it is. And they'd rather just be comfortable, stay in their comfort zone, and just continue to exist down a path of mediocrity, honestly.
Have you ever done things where you say things to someone was they didn't want change, but after coaching and guiding, they finally got that paradigm shift where they say, "Bam!" Light bulbs come on. It's like, I got it now.
Yes. And you know what happens before that? What precedes that is a moment of humility. And they get humbled and they're like, you know what? I thought I had it together, but actually I didn't. Or I thought I looked this way, but when I saw that recording, I didn't look anything like I thought I did. Or
Yeah. Um,
or I thought I sounded like this, or I thought I was doing that, but there was this intervention. And then you see the light bulb as well. So there is that period of just being able to humble yourself to say, I do welcome this change, or I do welcome this help. Because it's not easy for people to say they need help. And I'll raise my hand as a leader. I'll raise my hand as an entrepreneur and say, that was a lesson I had to learn the hard. You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it all on your own. You
yeah.
need the help of others. And, it's lonely at the top, as they say, and no one gets to the top alone, as they say as well. So you've got to embrace the community and the people who have come before you, and the experts, and the help of others, and say, I don't know how to do this, or I need help. I need a coach. I need an expert, or whatever. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, those light bulb moments, I think those are the best, those
Uh-huh.
light bulb moments. And one of the things, even in my growth, I read a lot, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I read a lot of books. I have several different coaches in my life. And one thing I realize is, even, in those seasons when I am mentoring a mentee, I see sometimes the resistance in that. And
Mm,
so it keeps me conscious and self-aware to make sure I don't do the same thing,
yeah.
because it's so easy to, because of how smart we think we are, it's so easy to think we're so smart, although it may not be working, or it may be working, but it could be working better. I mean, just triggering that in your mind and say, you know what, man, I gotta continue to grow. So with that being said, what are some things you're doing to ensure you continue to grow and develop yourself?
I love what you said, because it's the same thing for me. I mean, I find myself in a position where I feel privileged to coach others, but I always say the coach needs a coach.
Yeah.
So I have, thank God, people in my circle, and I have a therapist. Let's talk about that. The importance of mental health is beyond worth mentioning. And so it was when I decided to hire a therapist and work with someone professionally, it was night and day of being able to preserve my sanity and being able to talk through things I thought I'd neatly compartmentalized. I needed to do a little more work on, I really was just burying them. Or so a therapist, I have been way more cognizant about my self-care.
It's awesome.
And so thinking about what I'm eating and how I'm sleeping and exercising and journaling or writing or talking through things or celebrating my wins. So that has been one of the main things for sure. I'd say back to the word of intentional. I use my affirmations. I make sure I am telling myself what I need to hear in the mirror every day, and that I stay on top of my spiritual health as well and staying connected, making sure I'm reading, so there's so many different elements that go into all of it, and acknowledging them to make sure every single piece is addressed has been important for me, so I can fire on all cylinders for my clients and my mentees, and be a good mentee myself to my mentor, and just show up as the best person in all circumstances, because people don't deserve to get less than the best version of you, I think. So I have an obligation to make sure I am addressing those things to be my best.
And one thing you mentioned earlier, you said a therapist. We have this thing with going, we don't believe in that. We don't believe in that. We believe the only way you do it if you're crazy, or crazy people do it. But man, one thing I would like to tell anybody, and even including myself, like, man, you know what? Every last one of us has some cray inside of us. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, we can be in denial all we want, but we all have cray inside of us. And it's like, man, you know what? If that's the reason, if that's what you say, only those type of people see a therapist, you know what? You're right in good company. You need to go see one. So I mean, what's your experience with that?
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. It's worth pausing on, because yes, or you know what? It's the church's responsibility, right? Or go pray about it, or I can fix it myself, or I can read an article about it, or I don't need to go. And so it's trivialized. And when, just like you said, everybody has a little crazy in them, and more so, like, we've all experienced traumatic things in whatever way, or things from our childhood, or things that are currently happening. I mean, just look at 2020. We all need to go see a therapist because of 2020, period. So, I mean, that's enough in itself. And I had one friend break it down to me. And once he said that, I was changed. It was a very transformative moment. But he said, if you break your arm, are you going to try and fix your arm yourself? No, you're going to go to a doctor. You're going to go to a surgeon. Wow. If you, and insert any other thing that we go to professionals for otherwise. So why is your mental health any different? Why do you feel like that's something you can do yourself, or that you don't need, or that you write off because you think that's just for crazy people, or for a person who is fill in the blank? But we go see a professional for everything else. You wouldn't operate on yourself. So why are you trying to operate on yourself mentally? And so we need the help. We need it. And anyone who doesn't see a therapist is crazy. How about
that? You said something. You said, need the help. And this is the thing. Let's transition over to what you do. Here it is.
Sure.
You just said you need the help. And most people, especially in their careers, people don't think about help that you need, guidance that you need when you're moving into a career, or you trying to better or advance yourself. So let me ask you this question with Paradigm One. Why, if I was the one that's seeking a career coach, why do I need a career coach in my life?
Yeah. So again, your career can be something that's very hard to navigate. So you ultimately have a choice. You can say, I don't necessarily need a career coach, and try to figure it out yourself. But the expense or the casualty of that is that it's a lot of wasted potential time. By having someone partner with you and be a sounding board, or someone who can help hold you accountable to goals that you set together, someone who can help you map your career and think in short, mid, and long-term spurts. So you may eventually in time want to go back to school. Does that make sense? Can you talk with someone who has the wherewithal wherewithal and who has an overall aerial view of industries and sectors to help advise you in that way. Does it make sense for you to go back and spend $120,000 on this degree, or can you potentially take an alternative route? So having a career coach gives you that partner who's hand in hand with you, that can push you, that can pull you, that can wear multiple hats, but also just sit down with you, whether it's on the whiteboard or move all the puzzle pieces around so that you can feel confident about the direction that you're moving versus trying to figure it out. And worst case, Cedric, honestly say, man, I have regrets. If I'd known, I wouldn't have spent that time or that money or those resources, or I wouldn't have left the job early, or I would have stayed longer, or I would have left earlier, or I didn't have to put up with that toxic situation with my manager, because career coaching can be about navigating your relationships as well, your professional relationships. But what can I do on a proactive and not reactive, but proactive basis to set me up for success in my career, being that this is something I spend 8 hours a day doing, so, or more.
Wow,
so how can I be intentional and strategic? It helps you put the strategy in place.
Wow, what a perspective. That is awesome. If I was a new client at Paradigm One, what can I expect?
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. If you were a client at Paradigm One, you can expect working really hard on the things that I'd say are in the weeds. Paradigm One is about those soft skills. Like I said, I focus more on presence training. Are you showing up as a confident professional? So you could expect to work on your public speaking. You could expect to work on your communication skills. You could expect to work on the right relationships you need to build to help with your career. You can expect to work on dining etiquette and how you eat, how you sit, how you stand, how you walk, how you talk, your posture, your image, your attire, all of those things to help make you or transform you. It's kind of like a makeover, honestly, but that you have the presence and the branding that you're looking for, so that you're not doing what we said earlier of thinking I'm projecting this, but in reality, I'm not. And there's some funny memes out there about that. But this is what you think you look like. Here's what you really look like. And so we're able to help you align those two things so that you can really project what you want and that your brand is strong, just as a professional. Just like these, major corporations, McDonald's and Coke and Google and Amazon spend millions, if not billions of dollars on advertising and marketing, we have to do the same as our own personal entity, professional. So you have to think about your brand and what you're projecting and what you're doing on a daily. What do people say about you when you're not there? What do you have people in your corner who can advocate for you when the time comes, or be a champion for you? And would they say, so-and-so is this, and would it be positive or would it be negative? Because you might be thinking you are the next best thing in sliced bread. But the reality is your bread kind of moldy. What you thought it was. So are you thinking about your personal brand and what you're, again, projecting?
Wow, being the best you can be. Jay-Z has this quote, and I would never forget it. It says something real simple. He says, I am a business.
Yes.
And I thought that was so awesome.
Yes.
I mean, basically, like, man, we are a business. And that's what you're saying. We are a business. Your pay, how much money you make is determined on, most of it is presentation. I've seen people, I've literally seen this in the corporate world. I've been in the corporate world for over 18 years, and I've seen this in the corporate world where people really wasn't qualified. I've seen lazy people become the highest paid in departments, all based on presentation. And here you are, the hardest worker is mad and upset because this other person is not working near amount as hard as they are, but they don't have the right branding. I mean, Paradigm One is the thing. Listen to me, folks. Paradigm One. The information is going to be in the show notes. Look her up. The website is going to be in the show notes. Look her up and let her help you become better in your life. Not just, in your career, in your family. You'll be surprised on small habits that we can tweak that can change our lives all the way around. The 360 transition in our lives. What are some leadership growth tips tools, advice that you can share with the Lead to Greatness Nation to help us reach our greatest potential?
Sure, absolutely. One of the main things that I continuously drive home is what we were just touching on, is knowing yourself, but then also knowing your narrative. Are you able to convey in a concise way all of your experience, personal and professional? And some people say it's your elevator pitch, your elevator speech, all of that. But do you really know, back to your whys, do you know how it all comes together? And can you tell that or profess that? Because if you don't, somebody will do it for you. So you can write your narrative, or you can let others do it for you.
Wow.
I'd like to think you would want to write your own. So get on top of writing your narrative, invest in yourself, whether it's the therapist, whether it's the career coach, whether it's the leadership training, whether it's the workshop, whatever it is, continue to invest in yourself, because that's one of the most worthy investments I think that you can make. I'd also say, stick with our, be radical, be relevant, be authentic, be real, be you. But then beyond that, if I had an action item or a challenge, I'd say, this is one piece of advice, again, I was given, that I live by on a daily basis, but get outside of your comfort zone every single day, regardless of what it might be. It might be, oh, I really don't want to ask for this. Then once you feel that, do it. Do something to challenge yourself, small, big, medium, whatever it is, to challenge yourself every day to get outside of your comfort zone.
Wow.
And lastly, I guess, Cedric, I'd say build the right relationships. Just like you were saying, that person that was lazy, it was a combination of probably confidence, presence, and relationships. If you find yourself adjacent to the right people because you're pouring into and fostering and building authentic relationships, not ones that you can that are transactional that you redeem when it's time. Nobody wants those relationships. Right. But building the right relationships that are, again, authentic and holistic, so that you can ultimately navigate these things, or when the time comes, you have that person that's in your corner, I think is super important. So those are the things I leave the Lead to Greatness audience with, if they are thinking about more personal and professional development as well. But never be scared to be more self-aware and learn more about yourself, because that's the greatest relationship that you can have. All of the relationships around you are a direct correlation and directly related to how you know and love yourself. So that'd be the main thing I'd say.
Wow. Awesome.
I'm going to send you the invoice, Cedric, for this coaching session.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, because I'm taking notes. Oh my God. I mean, if I had a boom, I would boom right now. This is definitely awesome. And I Lead to Greatness Nation, we're definitely better because of this interview today. If someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Sure, they can go right to my website, which is www.paradigm1consulting.com. paradigm1consulting.com. If that's too hard to remember, you can go to the etiquetteempire.com.
Wow.
It'll take you to the same place, Etiquette Empire. And so those are ways they can stay in touch. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Etiquette Empress as well, across all handles. And so I'd love to gain followers there as well, where I post career tips and advice. And I am ramping up in the new year, so I would appreciate followers or subscribers. So at the top of the year, I will be posting lots of good content on a daily basis for people to absorb.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, Toni. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us.
Thank you so much for this invitation. This is awesome, high energy. I believe in this podcast and so happy. Congratulations to you for the success you've experienced with it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe notification button, and please leave a big thumbs up. If you're on iTunes, please rate this podcast and leave a review and help get the word out. Again, thank you, Lead to Greatness Nation, for joining us on today. Looking forward to seeing you again on next week. Till then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace. We out.